Guess former players.
Guess the player.
Wayne Rooney.
Guess the player.
Luis Figo.
Guess the player.
Ronaldinho.
Guess the player.
Maradona.
Guess the player.
Petr Cech.
Guess the player.
Pelé.
Guess the player.
Edgar Davids.
Guess the player.
Ruud Gullit.
Guess the player.
Eusebio.
Guess the player.
Puyol.
Guess the player.
Ronald Koeman.
Guess the player.
Ribéry.
Guess the player.
Gerd Muller.
Guess the player.
Thierry Henry.
Guess the player.
Peter Schmeichel.
Guess the player.
Lampard.
Guess the player.
Van Nistelrooy.
Guess the player.
Roberto Carlos.
Guess the player.
Raul.
Guess the player.
Michel Platini.
Guess the player.
David Beckham.
Guess the player.
Rui Costa.
Guess the player.
Buffon.
Guess the player.
Kaká.
Guess the player.
Lev Yashin.
Guess the player.
Pirlo.
Guess the player.
Rio Ferdinand.
Guess the player.
Ricardo Carvalho.
Guess the player.
Johan Cruyff.
Guess the player.
Rivaldo.
Guess the player.
Alfredo Di Stefano.
Guess the player.
Deco.
Guess the player.
Bobby Charlton.
Guess the player.
Iker Casillas.
Guess the player.
Ronaldo.
Guess the player.
Paul Scholes.
Guess the player.
Essien.
Guess the player.
Van der Sar.
Guess the player.
Puskas.
Guess the player.
Pep Guardiola.
Guess the player.
Javier Zanetti.
Guess the player.
Zico.
Guess the player.
Nesta.
Guess the player.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Guess the player.
Lothar Matthaus.
Guess the player.
Franz Beckenbauer.
Guess the player.
Nedved.
Guess the player.
Park Ji-sung.
Guess the player.
George Best.
Guess the player.
Futuri.
How many did you get right? Leave on the comments, please. If you enjoyed this content, please like the video, subscribe, and follow for more. See ya!